Here's Johnny.
I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord.
I'm walking here. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
I think we should do this podcast by actively telling people to just fucking ignore it. Like, don't rate us, don't comment, and then out of spite, maybe they will.
Maybe if we
like being told to do things.
Maybe if we all
we
got
don't need
together.
you assholes. We're fine talking to ourselves. And then all of a sudden the comments will just start pouring in.
For psychology.
Oh, we're much too smart for them.
Maybe if we all got together and voted, there would be some kind of average rating.
We all get together, vote it 1 star.
Seriously, I'm pretty sure all of our star ratings we have been given are 5 stars. We just don't have enough to get an average one that pop up.
Yeah. I was so proud. When Thanksgiving came out on Netflix, I was one of the first 10 people to rate that thing. So I had a huge impact on its star rating. I felt like God.
You do know the star rating does change depending on your recommendations.
Yeah, it wasn't my Netflix anyways.
Well, that doesn't mean anything still. It took me years to figure this out about Netflix, because I've just recently, thanks to streaming, noticed star ratings change constantly. If I rate something, suddenly something else will change. It seems like a pointless system to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit on there that I like that's 2 stars. And occasionally Netflix is like, would you like a Julia Roberts movie? No, I would not, thank you.
Well, I would. I just don't want it on my queue.
I don't want anybody to know. It's like a heroin.
Why are you trying to embarrass me, Netflix?
Mm-hmm. Just wait till we all have Google Glass, and then you can just watch your Julia Roberts films in public, and no one will know.
Google Glass. I want Google Fiber.
Yes, fiber.
It's good for the bones.
I mean, I know Google will just take over the world, but I still really want fast internet.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
Of course. Impossible.
Impossible.
The gun is good.
The penis is evil. Zardoz. Zardoz.
I'll find you, tiny man.
Tiny man. Tiny man. Oh, but I just want to say that I prepared no notes for this episode because it's fucking Dredd.
I was gonna write notes about a theory I had, or my not theory.
It intersects with Lost, actually. They were dead the whole time. Which isn't true with Lost, I know. Don't write angry letters to me, anyone who might be listening to this ramble.
Okay.
You hear that, TSA?
You're listening, Obama?
Yeah.
Thanks, Obama.
You're welcome.
The recording box office pulp.
Box Office Pulp recommends not saying the word terrorism.
You just said it! Oh.
Box Office Pulp better shut its big mouth.
Box Office Pulp doesn't give a good goddamn if the NSA gives him a full-body scope again.
Box Office Pulp likes it that way.
Box Office Pulp is used to anal probes.
Box office pulp may be communist.
Box Office Pulp just likes the touch of another man. Box Office Pulp likes the touch of any man. Box Office Pulp likes touch.
Box office pulp thinks that's perfectly okay.
Box Office Pulp used to dream of the touch of a woman. Now Box Office Pulp doesn't even dream.
Box office pulp doesn't sleep either.
Box Office Pulp's life is a black miasma of alcohol and cheap women.
To Box Office Pulp! So anyways, welcome ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't gathered, this is Box Office Pulp. The saddest podcast you could have picked. Wow, this thing went off the rails fast. Anyways, I'm your host, Cody, the Law, Flexo, Rico Elft, and today we're taking a look at the criminally underrated 1995 Sylvester Stallone sci-fi masterpiece, Judge Dredd.
Cody.
The Law.
Cody.
What?
That's not the film we're doing.
What are we
But the
doing?
trailer just played.
It was a misfire, all right? It was a misfire.
Well, if we're not talking about Judge Dredd, what are we talking about?
The movie that it was based on, RoboCop.
Oh, okay, good. Nah, I'm just fucking with the audience. We're actually talking about the far superior and much more scowly Dredd 3D.
This is Dredd. Judgment time.
To betray the law, to betray the city.
The sentence is death. We got trouble. Yeah. Perps were uncooperative.
Dredd 3D. Rated R. Starts September 21st.
Joining me today are three notorious lowlifes.
Podcast.
Former Chief Justice MB is taking a brief break from his death march through the cursed earth just to speak with us. Say hello, MB.
Together again.
Beautiful words. I'll remember them fondly. Next up, Mike Napier. How's the ISO cube treating you, Mike? Don't worry, I'll send cookies next time. And lastly, we have Judge in Training, James Lewis.
I knew you'd say that.
Now, James, a rookie judge on assessment is likely to be involved in armed combat. 1 in 5 don't survive the first day. He may be required to carry out on-the-spot executions of convicted felons or people who leave 1-star ratings on our podcast. Not appreciating a bop running joke is an automatic fail. Disobeying a direct order from one of your co-hosts is an automatic fail. Are you ready, rookie?
I will debase myself for any amount of money.
You look ready, then.
You sound ready.
And that's the end of my prepared material.
Bit closed.
We don't actually have anything to say about Dredd. We just wanted to do that opening 2-minute bit.
Let's start the podcast, Pa.
No. This podcast is in a perpetual state of never really starting. It's like Jell-O. What is this shit? Is this solid? Liquid? Who knows?
We're trapped in a stasis field, living out the introduction over and over again for all of eternity.
Hour and a half from now, we'll be like, all right, now let's introduce everyone on the show. Welcome to Box Office Pulp. Oh!
Like 1408.
And Rod Sterling walks out.
Consider for your approval.
Box office pulp.
We're not here to talk about the Twilight Zone. We're here to talk about the law.
If the airplanes further land us, no!
See, there's one thing I want to complain about this film right off the bat. I can kind of do a Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd impression. I can't do the Carl Urban Judge Dredd impression. It doesn't work for me. I can't do it. There's something in my mind that won't let me even try.
No one's that manly.
You can't do it. You can't do it because you're not Judge Dredd.
That's true, I guess.
I mean, Sylvester Stallone was just doing Sylvester Stallone trying to be Judge Dredd. Carl Urban he was possessed by the spirit of Judge Joseph Dredd.
It happened when he put the helmet on. It was glued to his head and he just couldn't take it off. It's kind of like that Goosebumps story with the mask.
I still say he just cut off the top of his head. He was that fucking committed.
No one will ever see my face if I hide it well enough.
You know, they say there are Carl Urban clones all around Hollywood, starring in low-budget action movies.
How do you explain Eric Bana?
Exactly.
Bana's Rico in this situation.
I would love for him to come back in a sequel and fight Eric Bana as Rico. He just plays his character from Star Trek, but as a clone of Judge Dredd.
I just want them both to scream something about the law in each other's face. The law!
The most animated Eric Bana's ever been.
It has happened. I saw it happen. Don't tell me it didn't happen.
Why don't you just go to hell, Spock?
Boy, that would have been great if Star Trek was like that.
This is why I marooned you in a nice world, because you're a dick. Coming up here in my spaceship, tell me it didn't happen. We're not here to talk about Star Trek.
Well, I mean, kinda. It's got Carl Urban. We've got Bones.
Is this still supposed to be a mini-bop?
No, this is a full-on bop.
Thank God.
This is an Uber bop. A mega bop, if you will.
This will be a 6-hour bop, actually.
A mega bop 1.
It's going to be like the Dark Knight Rises episode. We're going to have to break this down to several sessions. I'm going to have to get therapy afterwards.
I can't live through that again.
It would be fascinating if we just did an entire episode dissecting the 1995 Judge Dredd in relation to this movie.
It would be great. I mean, one thing I love about the Judge Dredd universe, both films, is that they've got all sorts of crazy shit stuffed into, like, hour-and-a-half long movies. Like, the first one had cannibal families, it had the Cursed Earth, it had robots, it had fucking everything. This one's got mutants, you know, fucking slow-motion drugs.
Lena Headey being awesome.
And neither are technically wrong.
Yeah.
And don't forget the telepath.
Yeah.
That is something that's always fascinated me about this movie, is that it's technically a gritty reboot of the Judge Dredd universe without ever actually feeling like it. Because it just looks like they took one of the less crazy Judge Dredd stories and put it on screen. I guess Judge Dredd is kind of like Batman in that regard, where you could do something that's super cartoony and super realistic and both feel like they're the same character and take place in the same universe.
Yeah, really the only thing that discredits the 1995 version in terms of just its sheer insanity is the fact that he takes off his helmet. It's really the only thing that feels invalid to some of the crazier stories in the comics from what I hear.
That's the part of that story that's not believable.
There's something I just love about 1990s movies because they were not afraid to just be fucking insane. I don't know what happened during that period, but just look at, like, Judge Dredd, look at something like, you know, the Shadow or fucking Darkman, any of it, like...
That's back in the day when 90% of the budget went to sets.
Yes. Amazing sets and crazy special effects, CGI that wasn't really good at all.
Real green screen, too. Like, they actually built
stuff
sets.
like Hook. It's like, we're just going to create a fucking world and walk around in it. It's going to be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
Bangarang!
You killed Rufio.
On a side note, did you see the actor who played Rufio recently recreate his fight where he died?
I saw it online. I didn't actually watch it.
That is fascinating.
It's pretty amazing.
Was it still heartbreaking?
Yes. Oh, wish I had a dad like you. Anyway, Dredd. Citizen Flexo, describe Dredd to us.
In Dredd, a by-the-book, tough guy cop who never removes his helmet because he's only in love with justice and doesn't want to see any other women, takes a rookie cop out for training day. Little do they know, they bit off more than they can chew when they enter an apartment complex that's very similar to the raid, but different, and they have to shoot a lot of people for an hour and a half. 5 stars. No clapping. It wasn't worth it. Don't.
I liked it, Flexo.
Aw, thanks, buddy. No, I mean, I make the joke about the raid, and we were talking about this before.
This is going to start.
This is how it's going to start. This podcast is all over. It's never going to make any sense. People will try and make a map of it, and it'll be like Primer. They'll just be confused as fuck. But I think this movie had the misfortune of coming out around the same time as the raid. It's kind of like, what is it, Armageddon and Deep Impact coming out near each other?
As Mike said earlier, it's a man thing, swamp thing kind of situation where two almost identical ideas arrived, like, completely independent of each other at the same time.
Yeah, so I mean, you can kind of see similarities between the two projects, and I think the comparison kind of hurts Dredd because Dredd's doing something different than what the Raid is. Like, the Raid basically just wants to be balls to the wall action, whereas Dredd's got some more sci-fi stuff going on too. It's more speculative.
It's I would say that the thing that really kind of differentiates them is that one is a straight movie, the other one is posing as a straight movie when it's really just, it's as good as any comic book, really. It's got all the elements there, but it also manages to take itself pretty seriously, like any of the good, gritty type of comic book movie in the genre. It kind of manages to do two different things at once, and that's to the betterment, I think. Because Judge Dredd as a comic book, from what very little understanding I have of it, is a lot of different elements basically focused around one central concept, which is this pastiche of authority, like an authoritative police state type of place that it all kind of revolves around. And that's what this film kind of brings to life way more than the 1995 or 1997 one. I forget. 1995.
Yeah, it's 95. Didn't you listen to my intro? I clearly stated the date. Come on, man.
But, yeah, this film is, by and large, what I kind of imagined a Judge Dredd movie being like when they announced it would be more faithful to the comics, because this character is really kind of a fascinating figure in terms of, like, the zeitgeist of, you know, movie action heroes. Like, this guy is everything that RoboCop is, and at the same time Dirty Harry and Batman mixed into kind of a same ball of
He's
something.
like the ultimate blank slate.
A little bit of Rorschach in there.
Yeah.
Like, he's one of those guys who should never really compromise on his beliefs.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a fascist, which makes him a weird choice to be a hero that you cheer for, but he's also needed because the world is so chaotic that there needs to be some force of order.
Like, I think it's perfectly illustrated with the side plot of all of the other judges taking money from, like, taking bribes from Mama, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that right there shows why Dredd is so important to this universe, because otherwise he would be a psychopath, honestly. Like, he follows the law to the letter, and that's his strength, but at the same time, he goes so far beyond the limit that really it goes beyond the vigilante sort of connotations that you get with Batman, because it's more like he's abusing his place of power, but he needs to. Like, it becomes a very necessary thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very conflicting, but at the same time, it's really fascinating for a movie character, because it's like, I think in movies we've become desensitized to the point where, like, a violent character like that doesn't really, it's easier to cheer for him now than it would have been, like, way back in the day, I think. Because we're just so used to that sort of action hero. Like, someone who just has to kind of go beyond the law and kind of take matters into their own hands. And Dredd is kind of the ultimate, I wouldn't call him an avatar of that, but he's the ultimate representation of what your action hero puts to the edge is. Like, he's the most insane version of John McClane.
Well, I would take it in a little bit different direction. Like, if you look at a lot of those kind of cop movies, for a big stretch of it, it's always, you know, the loose cannon cop who doesn't play by the rules. Like, there's the law, and it has guidelines for what he can do, and he has to fight outside of the law because the law is not enough. Whereas for this one, it's basically like the law gives him the letter to basically shoot anyone, and sometimes he doesn't. So, like, sometimes he doesn't live up to the law all the way, but it's on a rare occasion.
Well, there's like an interesting thing with Dredd in the comics. I feel like it was hinted at in the movies, where Dredd is disillusioned by the law system in Mega City 1, but he just buries it down and it only comes up at certain times. But he tries to follow it because that's his directive, is to follow it as straight as possible. But he is deep down disillusioned with the whole thing.
And you can almost say that the ending of the movie, where he, despite Anderson's failure to live up to the code, wants to say that she passed. Like, I think that's him going against his prime directive.
That or he's so bitter and cynical, he wants her to be a judge so she can get ground up just like him. No one leaves the city smiling. No one.
That's going to be Dredd 2, just Anderson dying her second day. That was a mistake.
Bad move, Dredd. He's talking to another Dredd clone.
If the Oscars gave out awards for scowls, I'm pretty sure this movie would win. I want to get that on the record. This movie gets my vote for biggest scowl.
And it's so perfect for that character, too, because whenever you see him in the comics, he is never not scowling.
He's allergic to smiling.
It's
like
so
he would break out in hives.
Dredd, like Carl Urban, was the perfect actor for this, I think, because he just gets the scowl down so perfectly.
I feel like that has to be CGI or prosthetics or something. It's just, that looks painful to do take after take.
It's weird how...
on Grumpy Cat.
God. And it's weird that it doesn't look silly in the movie.
Yeah, like, it'd be very easy for him just like a total jackass, just scowling all the time. Like, come on.
And I think the costume really helps a lot, too, because that could be a very silly costume to pull off. I mean, look at the 1995 Dredd. But
yeah, and the weird thing is that costume, like the 95 one, wasn't that far off. Like, they did the big eagle and the shoulder pads. And That's one of those costumes you realize should not be brought exactly as is from the comic to the screen.
And they did it in such a way where it made such sense, and at the same time, you don't feel like it's like trying too hard to be realistic. Like, sometimes people criticize like the Nolan Batman movies of having bat suits that are a little too armored or a little too this or that. And this one, it feels necessary for it to be more like SWAT gear.
It looks real, but still comic booky. Like functional, but still a little ridiculous in some ways.
That's the interesting thing about the costume is I remember whenever the first images surfaced of it, the helmet in particular looked very strange.
He had a bobble
out of proportion. Yet somehow, whenever you see it in the movie, it looks fine.
Yeah. It's
almost like the Bane mask. It looks stupid outside of the movie, but inside the movie, you just immediately accept it.
Yeah. And I think I've even grown to like it even outside of the movie, like in still photos. I've even gone back and looked at it, and it looks just so cool. Like,
even the other judges look cool.
Urban rocks that costume just to an insane degree. Like, he becomes one with it almost.
A costume that has a badge on it that says Dredd in giant letters should not look that cool.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it was leather, but it looked like it should be leather, whereas Batman's pants just look like there's some weird plasticky thing he throws on, not like they're actual armor.
The puzzle pants?
Yes. Whereas Judge Dredd's, vest looks like something a cop might actually throw on, like a big Kevlar vest type deal.
Even like the suit-up sequence in the beginning, like when he's putting it on, it looks like something a cop would put on.
A future cop.
Yes.
And it even works for like other characters, like Anderson's costume looks awesome. I wish he actually got more time in the helmet. I would have liked to see more of that because
Does she ever wear a helmet?
Yeah, she wears it for a couple minutes. Yeah.
Briefly, just on the ride to Peach Trees.
Okay, I was gonna say because Dredd makes a joke like, "Oh, I was wondering when you noticed, you forgot your helmet," so I couldn't remember wearing it all in the film.
Yeah, she only it's made very clear that she only takes off because it interferes with her psychic powers.
Mm-hmm.
Which
that and they couldn't sell a movie where everyone's wearing a helmet.
But
honestly, if you cast Olivia Thirlby, you're not covering the face up.
Yeah, but that was actually one thing I did want to talk about with this movie. One element I was really worried about when I was going to go see it was how are they going to pull off this ultra stylized, gritty universe and then have a psychic there. Like, that could have gone south in so many ways, I think. Because it just wouldn't, like, if it was a universe that the trailer was selling, it just wouldn't have made that much sense. And yet, when you see the actual movie, they set up, they do a very good job of setting up subtle little things, and then these ultra sci-fi concepts where it's like, oh, that does fit. It's just this kind of thing that's off to the side, rather than something that's in your face all the time.
The psychics aren't played as like all-powerful gods, so I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, and the movie is way more sci-fi than any of the ad campaign would lead you to believe.
Terrible ad campaign.
Once again, they were playing it like it was just the raid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed how Dredd was very straightforward with all of its plot elements. Like, they don't try and trick you, like, halfway through, be like, oh, it turns out she's important because she's a psychic. Or any shit like that. They tell you in the first 3 seconds of introducing her character, like, oh, this is her power, this is what she can do.
Yeah, so it's a straightforward movie.
Yeah. At the same time, I did love the fact that it surprised you in the middle of the movie by having these other judges show up and they're corrupt.
But even that, like, they didn't hide the fact. Like, as soon as they show up, they're corrupt. They don't hide that very long either. It's not like a big, shitty twist. It's basically surprising, but,
Yeah, I'm saying, like, that's a really good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Although I wish they'd been given more time, because they show up and they're, like, a 15-minute segment of the film?
Yeah, I still like to think that one corrupt judge was a clone of Dredd.
That's
the guy who idolized Dredd?
Yeah, would have been nice.
But,
he was Rico.
Rico.
Like, I just want some Armand Asante in this thing.
That's so much to ask.
Speaking of difference between the 90s movie and this movie, just how Mega City 1 looks is so insanely different.
Mega City 1 and Dredd, like Judge Dredd, just reminds me of The Fifth Element, like the way the city is set up.
My favorite part of it is how compact it all feels. Like, it feels like the walls are closing in even when they're on, like, the open streets. Because, like, it feels like the freeways are blocked off. It feels like the shopping centers have very small spaces. Like, it feels like a very uncomfortable place to live.
Yeah, it's one instance where the movie's limited budget actually helps it out, because You do really get the feeling like the mega city is just one giant apartment complex.
Yeah.
With a few streets here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And the District 9 influences, I think, helped a lot.
Well, they filmed in the same location, didn't they? Did they film in Johannesburg?
Yeah, they did.
I also love the fact that the central headquarters for the judges, it's
the Hall of Justice.
Yeah, the Hall of Justice. It's essentially just a giant building with like just a logo on it, rather than the huge eagle type thing from the 1995 movie.
It doesn't look overly sci-fi, which is...
How amazing would that have been, though? If everybody's living in absolute shit and squalor, and the Hall of Justice has this giant golden fucking eagle.
It would be appropriate.
There's champagne coming out of a fountain in the front.
I do love that, as low-key as this movie is, the Hall of Justice is still called the fucking Hall of Justice.
I love some of the little touches, like after Dredd takes care of the first set of goons, there's like a guy in a fucking carpet cleaner who's just going through the blood. And the loudspeaker's like, oh, the food court will open in 15 minutes, everybody.
Which is really in tone with the actual comics, which are just all over the place, tone-wise.
It has a very, like, RoboCop tongue-in-cheek type tone going for it.
Yeah, like, if you're not paying attention, you would just assume there's nothing funny in the film, but if you're actually watching it, you realize, like, oh, that's definitely played for laughs.
Well, the debase
like the whole
cell
hot
thing.
Shot.
The hot shot thing, especially.
Yeah.
Hot shot.
Shit. Hot shot.
That's how I'm going to order my hot sauce from now on.
Into your gun.
What did you say? Hot sauce.
Well, that's one thing that I absolutely love about this movie, and loved the very first time I watched it, was the fact that they don't do away with the gun that takes off a dude's hand. Like I think it's called the Lawgiver.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Lawgiver is the exact same gun as the first movie. Like, I have expected and was praying that Urban would say double whammy. like everything's there. He even has his motorcycle. It's an awesome motorcycle. It's nothing exactly strays from the source material. Like, it's just all Judge Dredd. It's exactly what it is in the comic books, taken to the next level almost, and presented as this, like, gritty crime drama in line with the Raid.
I had a funny thing where I was trying to recommend the movie to, like, a cousin of mine, and who knew about the 90s movie and didn't want to watch Dredd because the 90s movie was so terrible. And I got them to watch it by explaining that Judge Dredd at one point used incendiary rounds to burn a group of people alive. They just say they love the movie.
Hysterically.
Scowl intensifies.
Citizen Mama. Only Urban can make that line work.
Oh,
that favorite line in the fucking movie. Citizen Mama, you have been found guilty.
As he drugs the main villain and forces her to live out this whole hallucination as she's falling to her death.
I will say that's one of the most beautiful head burstings I think I've seen in film in a long time.
It is interesting how they don't shy away from the violence at all with that character, which is appropriate. It would be sexist if they didn't.
I just enjoyed the slow motion shots of guys getting blown to shit. Like, absolutely beautiful.
A movie that makes CGI blood work. That's like a first.
Yeah, I thought that was impossible.
I was really kind of worried because when I heard about the slow-mo drug, I thought it was just an excuse to use, like, really stupid camera effects.
Yeah, the trailers were billing that like it was the main gimmick of the movie. Like, it wasn't even a Judge Dredd movie. It was a movie about a slow-mo drug.
And once again, it's like the marketing campaign just screwed this movie over so badly.
I think it's just a hard thing to promote. I mean, you've got a hero who never takes his mask off. It's, British production, so it's low budget in the first place. It's sci-fi, which seems like people have a hard time selling. And it's not filmed in Iceland.
Well,
I think if they would have... go ahead.
I was going to say, it also hurts that they advertised Dredd as if it were a sequel to a non-existent first movie. It's like, Judge Dredd is back. Okay.
Yeah.
Who the hell is Judge Dredd?
Yeah.
Yep. What they really should have tried to market it as is a standard superhero film. I think that would have gotten more people in there because it's a character in a costume fighting villains. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of a lot of tropes that they could focus on that are in the movie. Like, there's a way to do this in a way that looks appealing to a mass audience, even for being like a rated R action movie. They just chose to make it look like it was this weird, almost indie movie type of thing, even though it kind of was for, it might as well have been for its budget, but it's strange, the decision that they kind of made with that.
It's Lionsgate for you.
Yeah, they made it look like it was way more of a B movie than it actually was. I mean, going by the trailers, you would think it was just Dredd entering rooms and shooting people.
Well, there's a lot of that.
But it's amazing how much they actually do fit into this movie, considering the majority of it is just filmed in an apartment complex.
I have kind of a weird take on the film's story, or the film's, or what I feel like the film has going for it as far as the theme goes. But tell me if I'm wrong. Does it seem like this movie is all about different viewpoints of authority? Like,
I'm really glad you went with that, because for a long time I thought this was going to be one big lead up to the lawgiver is a metaphor for his penis.
Well, that too.
That's also true.
Yeah.
It does,
also takes
does blow up anyone's hand if they try to touch it. Only a judge might touch that.
I feel like each character in the film kind of represents a different kind of authority, where Mama represents, the hostile authority gone wrong type of a villainous authority, like a lawful evil type authority. Dredd represents like a chaotic good, whereas Anderson represents like a more benevolent type of authority, and the other judges type of they represent like a I don't know what you call them, like a neutral evil. I don't know, but
well, in Dungeons and Dragons terms. Yeah, I would agree.
It seems like it's kind of going on all sides. Like, who's fighting for control for this apartment complex? Like, who is really controlling things? Is it Mama or is it the judges? And the film kind of tips the scales slowly in terms of, like, Mama is systematically taken out floor by floor, literally floor by floor, because Dredd is just a master at what he does. And it's made very clear that he's a one-man. Like, they don't shy away from the fact he's a one-man killing machine. He is a living weapon almost. And it makes it very clear that it's like, maybe not all of them are necessarily good things, but here's the lesser of two evils in Dredd, because he's still very much a fascist type of character. He just happens to be a little more likable than, the person who skins a bunch of people. I think it's a fascinating look at, like, different aspects. Like, a lot of people, and I think I came up with that mainly as a defense against a lot of people writing this off as a dumb action movie, which I don't think it is at all.
You could almost view it as a look at different types of fascism.
Yeah.
You've essentially got good fascism versus evil fascism.
Yeah.
That's kind of make an interesting point of, fascism is bad, but technically fascism for the greater good is better than self-serving fascism.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it's like, it's law and order, but it's almost the worst kind, and even that is still better.
Interesting idea. There is like a hierarchy of authority figures in the movie, and then the normal people in the building are just kind of innocent people stuck in the middle of weird, war for control. Even Mama going in and destroying all the other gangs that are in there.
All those defenseless fatties.
One of the few things that didn't make the movie.
No, there was fatty references.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Fatties rule.
I want to get a face tattoo of the Dredd helmet.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Fatty's rule.
Just right across the forehead. Like, wow.
It's spelled in bacon.
That would be terrible. You just have fat people licking your face all the time.
What do you mean? That'd be fantastic.
Well,
human contact. It's the best.
They say a heavy man's saliva is a natural cure-all.
Also, if you collect enough of it, you don't even have to use butter in your recipes. You just pour some of that in.
Truly, fat people are gods among men. Do we want to get some midget jokes in as well?
If we could. Now's the time.
Polish? Is anything else?
Hey, my ancestors were Polish. Dumb as shit, but they were Polish.
Ow.
Could you imagine if Peter Dinklage was morbidly obese? He'd look hilarious. But he could command a room with his stage presence.
Peter Dinklage as Dredd.
He could still pull an Orson Welles, you don't know.
Instead of wearing
Peter
costume, he
Dinklage
just wears a giant helmet.
Peter Dinklage does look like a tiny Carl Urban. Like, have you seen Peter Dinklage scowl? He has the Dredd scowl. Like, I do imagine if there are that many Dredd clones out there, one of them got fucked up and became a midget.
He watches
There's a whole force of them out there. What do we do with these?
There's a mini city one. They banished all the dwarfs.
I thought for a second you were going to say there's a miniseries. Like, there's a Judge Dredd miniseries, but it's all mini people.
He saves Little Kiss.
So Peter Dinklage should be Rico.
The law!
Only he could choose scenery like Armand Asante.
Yes, taking little bites, though, is the problem.
So Dredd.
It's a good thing no one listens to this podcast. We'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
These guys are assholes. I'm little. I'm not that little, but I'm kind of offended.
Like
if I were 2 inches shorter, I'd be pissed off right now.
That's the cutoff point. We'll put up a sign in front of the podcast, like, you must be this tall to not be offended by our stupid jokes.
But getting to a topic.
Hey, midgets are a topic. You don't consider midgets a topic? Hey,
Soldier through, hero. Soldier through.
But MB was talking about Mama earlier. How fucking awesome a villain did she turn out to be?
I was worried that she would be the most stereotypical one-off villain that they could have possibly done, but holy crap, does her performance make the movie? Like in terms of, I mean, not that Urban's doesn't, but she manages to make a villain that's worthy of Urban's Dredd, which is something that's very hard to do.
I think and I'll put this in Batman terms because I know you're a fan. If you go to The Dark Knight, you look at Heath Ledger's Joker and he's very energetic and he's kind of twitching all over the place, so it stands out. But in comparison, Christian Bale is always very much restricted and in control. Like, he seems very tense, just like a spring ready to go off. And I feel like you kind of have that dynamic in this movie. Like, Mama sits around, she plays with her henchmen, with a knife, just kind of fucking around with them. Whereas Dredd the whole time is just, he always looks like he's 2 steps away from just socking you right in the jaw. So you have 2 very different ends of the spectrum when it comes to acting.
Yeah, I think it really works well in that she just is the most sadistic person imaginable. Like, there's just no two ways about it. There's no, redeemable qualities at all with her. She's just absolutely psychotic. And it works so well because it's she just doesn't really hesitate to do anything. Like, anything at all that would be damaging or inflicting, any sort of violence she pretty much engages in, or at least considers.
Yeah, they're able to make a skinny, middle-aged chick seem like she's a perfect match for Judge Dredd, which is impressive.
And she's terrifying in some scenes, almost, because of that. I mean, great job on the makeup for that, because that's a very unique type of scarred villain, because you managed to get just a little bit in there to where she still looks human, but just a little bit off, almost.
Yeah, my favorite shot in the entire movie is that shot of her just staring into the camera and smiling like a fucking Brian Boland panel.
Right after she bit a dude's dick off.
She does twice.
Something this movie really doesn't get a lot of credit for is actually having a really awesome, fleshed-out female villain who isn't treated like she's especially female.
Yeah, it could have been
that was a weird way of phrasing it.
It could have easily been a part played by a dude, but it happens to be that much more awesome because this kind of short woman is Dredd's opposite number. It's amazing to see her next to these taller, buffer dudes, and to know she's the one in control. because it has an awesome dichotomy to it.
And to actually see her command a room with her presence.
I thought the treatment of women overall in the film was fairly decent compared to most other films. Like, Anderson isn't there just to be a piece of eye candy. She's not there just to be Judge Dredd's love interest. And, you know, she struggles in certain parts fighting dudes, but that's because she's a rookie, not because she's a woman. And then she kicks ass at the end.
Yeah, I think Anderson is more played as, she's not Catwoman, she's Robin, almost. Like, she's not really used as, for any sex appeal of any kind. She's just there to be the sidekick. She's there to be her own little character, and that ends up being a majority of the film. Like, her story is actually pretty fascinating itself because she's trying to prove herself, but at the same time, she's not that dependent on trying to prove herself. Like, she kind of loses interest in that, like, halfway through the movie, and she's just trying to do her job.
And she can't bust in a room and fire guns as good as Dredd because she's a rookie, but she can torture a dude a lot more than he can.
Which, by the way, that was actually probably my favorite scene in the movie, by the way, just the fact that not only do we get that whole sequence of her inside the guy's mind, you also get to see Dredd's tactics for torture, where he just starts beating the living crap out of the man and realizes that doesn't work. Like, I just love that entire sequence because, like, it's very clearly showing what the difference between these two are.
Yeah, I do like how the one time Anderson is sexualized, it's immediately turned back on the perpetrator.
Yeah, the only guy doing it is pretty much, you know, the scumbag, rapist, gangster. So you definitely, you know, you realize a bad guy's doing it is probably not something a normal person should be doing.
And it's inside his own mind, too, which I think helps because it's not actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only really uncomfortable part is when she's taken to that top floor and all those guys are around her and, like, they're kind of, it seems like there's an obvious intention there, and then Mama immediately calls it off. And it's just like, no, we're gonna kill her. Or we're gonna do, I forget what exactly she says. But
Mama kills clean. She doesn't let dames get in the way.
She was gonna stop the rape this time. Usually she's okay with it, though.
Yeah. But actually, it's a funny thing that Hero just said, because that kind of reminds me, like, this is kind of a really ultra stylized noir in a way. It's not like it's not a fine-tuned detective story by any means, but it's very much in keeping with a lot of those different tropes, I think.
Yeah, it feels very much like a low-key cop movie in, like, the vein of Training Day or something like that.
Oh, yeah, it's very reminiscent of Training Day, because, I mean, it's basically Anderson's version of that. Except instead of being ultra corrupt, Dredd is, you know, her mentor in a good way, but he's still a jerk.
And Dredd doesn't force her to mainline slow-mo to prove her loyalty.
Yet. It will be a sequel.
Denzel Washington
well, the sequel's iffy, I mean, come on.
I'm just saying, Denzel would have made an interesting Dredd.
I thought you were going to say Denzel.
Shit on me.
I was going to say Denzel would make an interesting Anderson. Like, I'm for that.
It's been a while since we've had a good buddy cop movie, right?
Alright, now I'm just imagining Carl Urban and Denzel Washington as buddy judges.
That's what they'll call the sequel, Buddy Judges. I'm the law, and I'm your roommate. Do the dishes.
Would Dredd, like,
Meet your new partner, Dredd.
Would Dredd bring his little robot friend around?
They came together to fight crime, but now they have to fight something even worse. Racism. It's a black cop, white cop thing.
Dredd would be racist.
You've got to be kidding me, Chief Schneider.
You're not prejudiced. I'm prejudiced. Puts on a clan hood.
Oh, God. The sequel to Dredd you didn't know you didn't want.
You asked for it.
You do, so thank you.
You didn't ask for it. We're going to give it to you anyways.
But, we talked a little bit about how we were worried about the slow-mo becoming a gimmick. But the actual slow motion is used in the movie is very effective.
Yeah, it's used very sparingly.
Yeah, the first time I watched it, for some reason in my head, I thought it happened all the time. Like, my friends were kind of making jokes that the movie would be like 45 minutes long if they took out all the slow-mo. But on repeat viewings, you realize it's not all that often. Those scenes just really stand out, which make them seem like they're more prominent than they really are.
Yeah,
I think there's like
honestly,
3 full slow-mo scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
There's the ending where, spoilers, Mama gets thrown out of the building and fucking lands on her face. There's the start of the movie where the guy in the van tries it. The other scene where the guys get thrown out of the building as a sign, a message to everyone else.
And then also that scene where they burst in and shoot the dude with the cheeks.
Yep, and Jed's just shooting everybody in slow-mo. So yeah, I think there were like 4 main parts to it.
And there's a difference between like Michael Bay's slow-mo and actually like using a phantom high-speed camera, sitting it down and making the image as beautiful as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the most horrible thing in the world, being made beautiful.
It's kind of like if you ever see Jell-O falling in slow motion, it's just amazing to watch. Same with like a guy getting hit in the stomach with a bullet. Just, oh man, that shouldn't do that.
Dredd only shot that guy because he was fat. It's against the law.
Have you ever seen that footage of the guy getting hit in the stomach with a cannonball in slow-mo? That was Dredd who fired that.
Every time a fat guy gets hit in the gut, that's Dredd. In spirit or in body, it's Dredd.
He just starts time traveling to defeat fatties.
Man, Dredd's a piece of shit.
Why are we even doing this episode? I
don't know. But I guess one of my big fears for the film, I know before we're talking about like, you know, when we're watching the ad campaign, how it put us a little off. Mine was that, you know, in action movies, it seems like more or less the focus is always on the main character being the biggest badass possible. Like, that's all the film is set up for. Nothing else matters in the film except for the main guy being a total badass. And it's that kind of level of wish fulfillment, you know, fan wankery that I just have a hard time getting into.
Yeah, that kind of thing makes me uncomfortable as well. It's like there are movies that can pull that off well, but I find like with a lot of action movies, especially the more like the ones that take place in the real world but are still super over the top, it kind of puts you into that weird like okay, am I just watching violence porn now?
Yeah, that's in action films specifically. It seems like that's what half of them are going for. Like, check it out, Riddick is such a hard ass, he can do anything he wants. Watch him kill these guys. He says he's gonna do it, it's gonna happen. Everyone will be impressed.
He's a big man.
Don't you wish you were Riddick? Yeah, and it's like, I have a hard time getting into that. And with Dredd, it seems like that's what the whole thing is based around in the first place, so I don't know. Going in, I was very nervous that is just gonna be kind of like, you know, a big fan wank, like exactly what the fans want, just mindless action and fucking big guns, but nothing else.
You told them to respect the badge, and they did.
But then it surprises you in that it gives Dredd every possible disadvantage. Like, he gets shot at one point.
I did really enjoy the fact that Dredd gets shot, although I wish he'd done a little bit more to save himself at the end. Like, his big fight and gun down is basically him, you know, just trying not to get shot and running out of bullets until Anderson comes in and saves him. I wish they'd shown his character being a little bit more resourceful in that one particular scene. But it was still great to see the hero get fucking shot and owned at one point. Like, he's not able to conquer everything.
Yeah, and even then, it's like you still get the punch of he gets shot, but it's not like he screams or anything. Like, he just gets angrier.
Just scowls even more.
I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but when there was like a lot of bitching when Urban was cast for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
remember that at all.
I remember people bitching about his like chin and all that. I think it was because Urban's not like a huge dude, but I like. I would never had a problem with Urban as Dredd. I was excited for it, but I liked how, you know, even in the comics, Dredd's like a giant dude. But I like how if you put him in a crowd of other judges, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between him and the other judges. Like, he doesn't really look that much different than anybody else.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, something like cool about, like, a little more humanizing than him being like this giant action-looking dude.
Like,
they should have just hired Jay Leno.
One thing that actually kind of points that out is the fact that during the scene when the other corrupt judges are looking for him, you almost can't tell who's who. Like, I think that's actually intentional.
Like, when they get into the scuffle when Dredd fights the first judge, you know, they're going back and forth and they're trying to choke each other. I had to, like, rewind after the first time I watched it because I'm like, wait, who the fuck just choked who?
They just killed
Dredd. Kind of lets out a scream that does not sound like a Dredd scream.
I think Anderson just killed Dredd.
What happened?
But it's very actually clearly like shown on their badges. Like if you pay attention to that, you'll see like in giant letters.
It's the entire reason those badges exist. But, one interesting thing they do something that follows through with whenever the I don't want to call them dark judges because none of them have fucked up faces, but when the jerk judges show up.
I like that title.
That's going to be the sequel.
Alliteration's the best.
Jerk Judge. Judge Jerk.
12-issue maxi series, Brian Boland.
It's interesting how in the first act, the way it's presented, you wouldn't think that Judge Dredd was any different from any of the other judges, but by the time they bring in the jackass judges, like they build up Judge Dredd as the ultimate judge. It's like it almost feels like an origin story, even though there's no origin taking place.
Yeah.
It's like by the end of the movie, he actually is Judge Dredd.
Yeah, I remember actually thinking that the first time I watched it, which was, and they're not really playing there. I mean, Dredd's doing awesome things like that Dredd would do, but he's not doing anything like particularly amazing. Like it's not like the beginning of the Stallone movie where he's a superhero.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Actually, when you talk earlier about there not being many plot twists, like that is kind of a interesting, subtle thing they pull. Where, like I said, at the beginning of the movie, he's just another judge, but you slowly realize that he's a big deal.
Yeah, and only because he's extremely good at it, and they kind of it kind of takes that situation to show why he's extremely good at it. Because I'm sure if it were like an ordinary like day on the streets type of movie, like if he and Anderson had been taking on like a variety of different small crimes, then it would have been a lot harder to show why he's so good at what he does. But you put him in this almost impossible situation, and it's just kind of the idea of backing him up to the wall, like just to see what he's going to do.
There was actually a deleted scene, if you go on the Blu-ray, where Judge Dredd just spends like half the day walking around town solving small crimes. Like there's one where Burger King is robbed, and he just, okay, could you describe the perp for me? And he's taking notes, and it really shows he's just a regular guy.
Fucking hamburglar bastard. Over.
That was my favorite part when he executes the grimace.
Little does he know, nothing guilty grimace. That was the origin of Judge Death right there. Grimace comes back as Judge Death.
Like, Grimace would be Judge Dredd's arch nemesis because he's always grinning.
And they build to the third movie, which is Ronald.
The one who caused the Apocalypse War.
The cursed beef. Mega Drive-Thru 1. 400 million cows. All together.
Somehow Max von Sydow would still be involved.
He's walking through there, just lost.
Walking through the cursed McDonald's.
What is going on?
This line is so long.
Big Mac, together again.
Ronald, you think you're the burger? You're wrong. I'm the burger. Dredd starts eating himself. He's been in line for 3 days.
I taste good.
I can't see Dredd enjoying a burger. Like, he'd be scowling while he eats it, which involves some sort of weird muscle combination I can't fathom.
Delicious.
Fucking terrible.
I normally only eat gruel.
I'm only eating this for sustenance.
If my food can come in a flavorless paste, I'd be much happier.
He just holds his gun up to his face. Salt shaker.
Soon, my darling.
I think that Dredd just eats nothing but hot sauce. That's how he's always scowling.
I mean, it's just very much like a RoboCop type thing. Like, he just has that face. Tastes like baby food.
One other complaint.
Joe, it's you.
Which is, there was no anthrax over the credits.
That is disappointing. I mean, how do you make... I mean, to be fair, with this movie's budget, they probably couldn't afford it.
They could have asked Scotty, and he would have given it to him.
That is a good point. I mean, if you were any member of Anthrax, and people making a real Judge Dredd movie wanted to use that song, would you say no?
If anything, he would just ask to have been somebody that Judge Dredd killed.
Can I be morbidly obese?
Boy, can ya?
Can I be the Grimace?
Such a missed opportunity. It's like Man-O-War not playing over the credits of Thor.
We'll have it for the sequel. We'll have it for the sequel.
So yeah, speaking of which, what is everyone's thought on this going to be?
Wow.
I have very little hope for a sequel. Okay,
I honestly don't think a sequel will happen. What was it? Okay. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now, which is always right. Despite the positive critical response, the film earned just over $41 million at the box office on an estimated budget of $45 million. However, I guess like the Blu-ray sales were just fucking phenomenal, so there's still hope. But I imagine if we did get a sequel, it would be even lower budget.
Yeah, I mean that's the one.
Urban just making it in his backyard. I'd be fine with that.
Once again, they could just go to the Anthrax guys and get them to fund it. I'm sure they've got a few thousand stashed away.
I've always been confused why guys like Bill Gates don't just like, oh, here's $100 million. I want to see Pacific Rim 2. Like, you've got the money. You could do it.
Make all the Star Wars.
He doesn't care, Flexo.
He's too busy saving kids with like malaria, which is a bummer.
Nobody wants to see children get better.
Look, if I have to watch sick kids, I'm going to feel sad. If I get to see Pacific Rim 2, I'm going to feel happy. Which is better?
Sick kids like giant robots, too.
Well, they're going to be too dead to care. I'm going to be alive for a while.
Just a while.
Till I die.
I'll get to enjoy it longer is what I'm saying.
Yeah. What we're saying is, kids are terrible. And should probably die of malaria.
I'm saying they have options.
Recommends not saving the sick.
I would recommend recycling them in some way if possible.
Box Office Pope recommends Soylent Green.
See, I mean, that's something good for the environment, right? Like, food shortages, we don't have to worry about that as much. Do you know how much energy is required to make a hamburger? It's a lot. We've already got people sitting around.
Do you know how much energy it takes to keep a child alive?
Too much.
Yeah, there are less and less cows every day, so you need to start looking at other sources.
I think we're making our own Judge Dredd sequel right now. There's going to be a cult of people eating babies, and Dredd has to stop them.
Oh, wait, just to cover our asses in case a sequel does happen, a sequel is totally going to happen, and it's going to be amazing. All bases are covered. All bases are covered.
I just want to see that universe's version of the Dark Judges.
Did they ever say what their plans for the sequel were, if there was going to be a sequel?
Dark Judges?
Yeah, Garland said Cursed Earth and Dark Judges, but he doesn't know if they could do that since the budget would have to be either the same or lower. Yeah.
Doug Jones has to play Judge Death. It has to happen.
The Dark Judges are just guys wearing like Halloween skeleton costumes. Ooh, boogity.
But I think the next one was supposed to be The Long Walk, and then they were going to do the Dark Judges.
I just want to see more from this universe.
That's why we have sequel comics.
No, we don't.
Judge Death was always pretty much everyone's number one.
I would love to see like this gritty universe suddenly introduce a ghost judge from another universe where life is outlawed and he just floats around killing people.
It's like, how is that even going to work?
Before we go, everybody should go.
No. We still have It Came from Internet Movie Database.
Okay, before we go to that, everybody should go watch the video of Urban from a recent, I think it was a Star Trek convention, reading the opening narration of Dredd America. Fucking amazing.
For some reason, though, that title, Dredd America, just makes me think of that Pawn Store. Pawn America? But with a lot more mugging.
You are the only person on the planet Earth that has that problem.
It's a good thing other people don't have to worry about that, then.
Like kids with malaria.
Well, they don't have to worry about much for long.
Exactly.
Sometimes
Speaking
I envy them in their short lifespans.
IMDb.
This time, it seems like the fans of Dredd are a little bit more coherent. As in, like, less typos. I can generally understand what they're trying to ask. But they do ask a few important questions. One, Blu-ray sales. Alright, whatever. Just asking if it made money. Someone talking about just Anderson's character arc. Whatever. No big deal.
What's up with Anderson?
What's up with Anderson? Basically, yes. But they do get down to the important questions, like Dredd versus RoboCop.
Who can scowl the greatest?
And the question is, which law enforcer would win? Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark. And this is where I think the bread and butter of all discussion should be at. Like, I don't care about the Ukraine. I care about who would win in this fight to the death.
Way to date us.
Well, Ukraine could always have issues. I don't know. I don't see it getting solved soon.
Ukraine's complicated.
Box office pulp is topical.
That's right. So I'm just gonna throw this out here. I would say RoboCop.
Why would you say that?
I'm glad you asked. Because 1, he's half man. 2, he's half robot. And 3, he's all cop. That's 150% of a thing, which is amazing. Judge Dredd is pretty much all man, and maybe 20% scowl. So that's only 120% of a thing, which is still amazing, but not as amazing.
He's also all law.
Yeah, exactly.
He is all law. I should give him that. Well, now we're at a standstill. I don't know. I retract my opinion.
Wait, throw this in
If
there.
you're all cop, you have to serve the law, so a being of all cop meeting a being of all law, I mean, law's gonna win.
Yeah. Didn't we once do Judge Dredd and RoboCop being roommates?
What about Super Cop?
The cop who can't be stopped?
Meet the cop who can't be stopped.
Well, now I'm just
BioCop.
BioCop who just would want to be dead.
I still think Ed 209 would come in and kill all of them. Then
The
fall
whole thing would
downstairs.
be erased from existence by Time Cop, so.
Well, what about the robot from the 1995 Judge Dredd?
He's
What if
off
he
the dying
gets
lane.
Ed 209? Oh, yeah, that's true.
They've got a condo in Miami now. They're very happy.
I'm just trying to think, what crime would RoboCop be charged with where Dredd would have to take him down? Like illegal parking because he's technically a vehicle?
He's not technically a vehicle.
He could probably turn into a car if he wanted to. I'd imagine that's some sort of attachment.
That would have been RoboCop 4 if Frank Miller got another crack at it.
Instead of just having that jetpack that pops out, he has wheels.
I have to make that noise with my mouth.
Dead or alive, you're driving with me.
Once again, RoboCop is the designated driver. You're a lush, Lewis.
Okay, so maybe a better question. What if this was Stallone Dredd, and he was fighting remake RoboCop?
Stallone Dredd.
Stallone.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, not even really a question. He'd have a quippy one-liner, that big old paralyzed, scowly face of his.
He'd also have Snyder to help him, so.
Oh god, that would probably just kill him.
He would just throw Snyder at him. Ah.
He would use him as a nightstick and just bludgeon both of them to death.
Well, Rob Schneider is unkillable.
Rob Schneider is the Urba-Gerba Schnurba-Gerba.
Also, Stallone Dredd is a clone of John Spartan from Demolition Man, as we've covered before, so.
Also, I'm not convinced that Judge Dredd isn't a sequel to Dredd.
Well, I've said this before, where it's Mega City 1, so the Stallone movie is just happening in another part of the city. They're actually happening the exact same time.
Yeah.
It's just two
the
different
swanky
Dredds.
part.
Well, I wouldn't say the exact same time. One's got to be the prequel and one's a sequel, I'd imagine.
No, two different Dredds.
Oh, they're two. Oh, okay. So are they both clones?
Yeah. And there's a whole.
They
some other
both
Dredd
exist in
clones.
different halls of justice?
Yeah.
And they never meet each other?
Yeah, if we're going off the comics, then yes.
This sounds a lot like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, so I'll allow it.
Meanwhile, outside the Mega City in the Cursed Earth, Titan Girl is happening.
This all sounds pretty good, but it's not as good as the Sam Raimi shared universe that we discussed earlier.
And of course, while all this is happening, London is just V for Vendetta.
I would like to imagine out in the Cursed Earth, and the Cursed Earth is really just Australia. Mad Max is happening.
Now, we've been over this before. All futuristic movies take place in the same universe.
If they were to walk like 40 feet to the left, they would just bump into something else.
You know, how is that a team-up movie that nobody's ever thought of? Future Warriors.
It does not take place in the future or contain warriors.
So it'd be perfect.
It's a perfect 90s movie.
Ah, the 90s.
Box Office Pulp recommends the 90s.
Box Office Pulp recommends Needless Nostalgia.
So, Dredd.
More IMDb.
All right. One comment. Ugh, those bikes. And the comment
Those
is,
were his last words.
early on in the piece, I was disappointed by the design of the judge's bikes and was thinking it didn't bode well for the rest of the movie. I understand the judge's bikes were never pretty, but this was just strange. Front heavy looking, awkward and weird seating position and posture, and that engine noise not good. He's chasing a POS van and he's wringing its neck like a kid on one of those 250cc fours with a look-at-me pipe. A law enforcement bike should have a large, deep-throated, and torquey engine that requires minimal gear shifting. It just sounds better that way. I'm glad to say that's the only gripe I have about what's a truly great piece of action movie making. It took me right back to the spirit of the comics I read as a kid. Puts the Stallone one firmly in the shade.
You know, in the comics, Judge Dredd battles a giant talking gorilla, right?
So apparently that's the thing. Your bike's got to sound fucking cool. Don't try too hard.
I'm just imagining Carl Urban dressed as Dredd, kicking down that guy's door and explaining the anatomy of the lawgiver bikes.
I will admit, I thought the design of the lawgivers were a little on the lame side in the movie.
Are we talking the gun or the bikes?
I'm sorry. Is lawgivers the bike and the lawmaker, or is it the other way around?
Other way around.
Ah. The bikes I thought just looked a little plain.
Yeah, the bikes, yeah. A little bit.
They're such a small part of the movie, it doesn't matter, but...
You win this round, IMDb.
What else do we have? Costume designer should be blacklisted. Could Carl Urban even see out of that helmet with that hideous X design right in front of his eyes? Not only that, but the shape of the judge helmets was also bothersome. The movie had some cool effects and camera shots, but just a few. Caps lock. The concept of the film was also kind of weak, as in days of the week, giving them the ability to have one set for the entire movie. Overall, it was entertaining enough, but if they do, caps lock, make a sequel, they better step it up. I give Dredd a 6 out of 10.
If they don't, I'm watching.
Another insightful comment. Out of ammo? Are you kidding?
That's
I like the movie, but when Dredd told the other judge to conserve ammo, I was so confused. There was guns everywhere, caps lock, and they were surely loaded with extra ammo. He doesn't even bother changing guns. If he was so worried about running out of judge gun ammo, grab any of the many dead guy guns and use those till you're out. Wrong your.
I'm just imagining the Axe Cop version of Dredd, where they need to get extra judge gun ammo.
Was there something about his character that wouldn't let him pick up any other gun? Was dispensing justice only allowed with judge guns?
Yes.
Judge guns.
I'm not sure, New Daddy 1. I'm not sure.
Well, I like to think that Dredd is so isolated and immersed in that world that he doesn't know that other guns don't explode whenever you pick them up.
That is true. I mean, let's be serious. Let's be serious. If you were in a world where if you touched a gun that didn't belong to you, your hand exploded, would you just go around picking up random guns?
I would constantly be picking up guns, like, ooh, let's play some roulette.
Find it for a hand.
What if they did that with other things? Like, if you took someone's chewing gum without asking permission, it would just fucking blow up in your mouth?
I like to think the helmets work in the same way.
Truly is an apocalypse.
Someone posted a very in-depth article about a fall in crime in developed world baffling experts and how this somehow ties into a sociological reasoning for why Dredd bombed at the box office. All I know is I scanned through it and I just caught the words, some have even suggested an Obama effect in the U.S., whereby the election of the first black president has had such a collective inspiration that some would-be criminals have turned away from all illegal activity.
Thanks, Obama.
Thanks a lot, Obama. You stopped crime.
You took food out of Carl Urban's mouth.
So I guess the idea here is because the world is a safer place and we trust the law slightly more, movies about the law do worse.
Sounds good to me.
Sound logic.
Oh.
Another comment from Bobby9X. B-movie. Comments. With C-level actors, low production value. People actually like this movie, why?
Because English.
Why? Oh, followed up with one snarky response. You see, some people are so desperate and nostalgic for 80s style action movies that they're willing to overlook aspects like plot, characterization, originality, creativity, depth, and intelligence just if a movie features lots of shooting.
Oh, I am.
They're the only ones overlooking intelligence.
Oh, and then the next person. Oh, you mean that time when action movies were good?
That is like the great thing about Dredd. It is like the greatest 80s action movie that never happened.
Next guy. I like Dredd, but it should have had more satire. It's a bit too much of a shoot-'em-up film. The response to that? And flying cars! Don't forget the flying cars! They make or break a film.
I don't know. That's the thing about IMDb. I don't know if that guy's serious or not.
I know.
I don't think he is. But the guy who responded to him couldn't tell either. I've never said they make or break a film, but unlike some people on here, I think there's some things, including more satire and a futuristic look, that could have been done better. Like flying cars.
So he agrees.
So, Internet Movie Database. A place to go when you just feel like not being happy. Dare I look at page 2?
The entire internet.
The real reason there is no sequel, ellipses, yet.
Once again, it's Obama.
Did you, like me, wonder what the hell Carl Urban meant when he said Lionsgate were in talks concerning a possible sequel? I mean, another 30 to 50 million in pocket has changed them, right? What is there to talk about? I'm just blatantly copying and pasting stuff from the well-informed Joe Soap. And then there's a YouTube link, which I'm not going to click on.
I don't understand what any of that said.
No, I want...
Why don't studios just make things?
I know he used words, but I don't think he put them in the right order.
No.
Is it possible that he was just a bot?
It feels that way. That's why I'm not clicking the link.
I mean, can you is it okay to talk like that? Nobody ever told me. Win, asparagus, butter.
That's how I like my conversations.
It's kind of weird riddle.
Riddle me this, Obama. How is crime doing worse?
Obama is the greatest Dredd villain of them all.
Can we just end there, please?
That works for me. Box Office Pulp recommends thanking your president.
Thanks a lot, Mama.
You're not the president. I'm the president. I'm
just imagine Carl Urban wearing the helmet, doing the presidential theme as he marches over like a just mountain of corpses that he shot.
All fat.
All fat people.
I'm the president of murder.
I don't know why this is the avenue we've decided to go down, but I accept it.
If you somehow decipherable from this means we really like Dredd.
If you haven't seen Dredd, you can probably pick it up from Walmart for like $12. It's pretty cheap.
$5.
No, it's for $5 now.
Yeah,
It's seriously $5 right now?
It is.
Yeah, I bought it.
The Blu-ray combo pack is $12.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. What I'm saying is, audience, if you haven't seen Dredd and you just listen to this whole thing, don't be an asshole. Go buy it. Go watch it somehow.
Yeah, support it.
Definitely buy it.
Yeah.
Buy it and leave comments on IMDb.
There's a chance we can...
It'll make Flick so happy.
Yes. The stupider the better, and if you can throw in typos and caps lock for no fucking reason, you'd be
just
my
random
hero.
words. Just flag, nighttime. Just anything in there.
That's the only reason I go to IMDb anymore, people. You gotta provide for me.
We should just pretend like we own IMDb and just say, hey, if you leave comments at IMDb, you could end up on an episode of Box Office Pulp.
And visit our blog at imdb.com. Seriously though, please visit our real blog at imdb.com. Blogspot. No, we're at Box Office Pulp at blogspot.com. You can go there. That's fantastic. We have more episodes. We're on Tumblr. We're on iTunes. We're having an ad put on the moon in the future. It's going to be great.
We're also on Stitcher.
Yeah, yep, all over the place. You can buy a shirt.
Subscribe to it.
And if you want to listen to even more of us, we have other podcasts.
Such as the Off-Panel Podcast, Conjectural Combat, and,
the Bible Belt.
Below the Bible Belt, and Pulp Nightmare.
There's a whole cornucopia of flavors out there. Just look at them all. And coming soon, there's going to be something so mighty, it makes Thor look like a namby-pamby. And that's all I have to say on that subject.
And like that, he's gone.
All right, everybody. That's a wrap. Go listen to our other shit.
Citizen Cody, you've been found guilty. Sentence, death.
Damn it, not again.
Whoa.
You'll never take me alive, coppers. Falls out of the building.
In slow motion.
Box Office Pulp recommends a parachute.
Finn.
Okay, and
The end. Da, 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 da.
Here's Johnny. I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord.
I'm walking here! I'm walking here!
I'm sorry, Dave.